Do you want to know who's going to bust in week 2 of the fantasy football season? Well, stick around because we're going to let you know. Welcome back, Endgame community. I'm Pierre and he's Chris. We're going to tell you who we think is going to let you down this coming week in fantasy football. You might want to avoid them in your lineup. All right, Chris, let's kick it off. Who's your first bust for week 2?
I'm going to go with Amari Cooper, and I know he didn't do anything in week 1, but it's easy to look at Amari Cooper and say, oh, it's the Jets. You got to start Amari Cooper. But I think this Jets secondary is going to be a lot better than we thought they were going to be. They really did a good job mostly against the Ravens. Yeah, they gave up a couple of big plays, but they didn't really give up a whole lot of, receptions to the Ravens wide receivers. And Sauce Gardner looks like the real deal. Their corners look good. I don't think this is going to be a game. I don't think the Jets are going to be a team that we can just say every week, oh yeah, start your wide receivers against the Jets. And not only that, what did we see last week from the Browns offense? Donovan Peoples-Jones was Jacoby Brissett's number one target, not Amari Cooper. And if that continues in what looks like actually might be a fairly tough matchup, I just don't see how you can even think about starting Amari Cooper this week in your fantasy lineup. So I know you might have drafted him to be your every week wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3, but to me, in this matchup, with what we saw from the Browns in week 1, you have to bench Amari Cooper, going to bust in week 2.
Yeah, look, some people will say, oh, that the Jets, they give up those 3 long touchdowns to receivers. Well, look, that's what happens when you play a team like Baltimore because you're worried about the running game, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews underneath. You have those soft zones and they crowd the line of scrimmage, and that's why they take those shots. This is a different kind of offense, but yeah, Amari Cooper, look, show us something before we can put you in our fantasy lineups, with Jacoby Brissett at least. Talk about another Cowboys receiver, a current one, and I want to take this opportunity to say I'm officially freaked out about CeeDee Lamb, all right? Now, CeeDee Lamb really gained a lot of steam. People thought this would be the year without Amari Cooper there. He's, of course, the number one target in Dallas and a guy who's going to take it to the next level. I think that looks like a huge mistake now, and of course, Dak Prescott out now for, I think, 6 to 8 weeks. That has something to do with it, but let's not forget that week 1, we saw that CeeDee Lamb looked really bad all game before Dak Prescott got hurt. He was targeted 11 times, which is what we thought might happen. He only caught 2 of them, all right? This is not just Dak Prescott's fault. Yeah, Dak was bad, but you know what? Dalton Schultz still caught quite a few passes for some yardage. Tony Pollard caught a few passes. CeeDee Lamb was struggling to get separation. He was struggling, and he was even called out by Stephen Jones, the son of Jerry Jones. All right, and they don't call out their players very often unless there's a reason to. So without Dak and CeeDee Lamb, I just think he's going to struggle against the top corner for the opponent. And I'm not starting him. And if I have him, which I don't have a lot of him, but if I do, honestly, I'm fielding trade offers. That's how worried I am about him. All right, who else you got?
Why are we still trying to make Kadarius Toney a thing? Like, why are we doing this? He makes like one play where he catches, a wide receiver screen and takes it for 20 yards, and people start freaking out like, get this guy the ball, get this guy the ball. No, there's more to the NFL game than putting the ball in your hands and making a play, especially for a wide receiver. Sometimes you might need to block. You know what else? You actually need to be able to run routes. And Kadarius Toney cannot run routes. He cannot get any separation. Sure, he's a dynamic player with the ball in his hands, but you can't just get this guy the ball in his hands 10 times a game just so he can try to do something and run around the field. He needs to actually be, do things that NFL wide receivers need to do. And he just can't do that right now. And head coach Brian Dable has even said, look, he knows the playbook. That's not the issue. He got 7 snaps in week 1 because he can't do the things we need him to do. And until he can, he's not going to be on the field. Stop trying to make Kadarius Toney a thing. He's a great athlete, a great playmaker when he has the ball, but he's not what works at the NFL game, in the real life NFL game. And that doesn't translate to fantasy football either. So you stash him on your bench if you want. Hope one of these days he gets it and the light bulb goes on. But for right now, please don't put Kadarius Toney in your lineups. He looks like a total wasted pick, and he's going to bust once again in week 2.
Yeah, I don't think you'll ever convince me that Toney is going to be a breakout player for all those reasons you mentioned. I'm on board with that. Now, this one is different because I'm a huge Rashad Bateman fan. You know this. And it's not just because he's going against my Dolphins this week, though that's part of it. But look, Bateman, there are some red flags here so far. Again, I think he'll be fine season long, but right now, didn't really see what I wanted to out of him in week 1. So let me talk about the fact that I mentioned route participation. It's not just snaps and being on the field, but actually running routes. That's what matters for wide receivers. Well, Bateman, despite being clearly, at least we assume, the alpha in Baltimore, only a 71% route participation, and that's much lower than it should be, especially for a wide receiver 1 type. Only an 18% target share. It should definitely be higher considering the state of the Ravens offense right now. And so the fact that he really didn't stand out as much as I thought. And look, this was against the Jets, who I know you said, well, the Jets not that bad of a defense like we thought, but still. The Dolphins defense, I would argue, is better, and they have a shutdown corner in Xavier Howard who's going to be all over Bateman. So I'm really not ready to say that Bateman is going to take it to the next level. And this week, I'm worried about his output. So honestly, I really don't feel like he should be starting. All right, Chris, we got one more bust each, so let's hear your pick.
I'm going to pick on Zeke 2 weeks in a row. And you know what? A lot of people gave me a hard time for saying Zeke was a must sit. Well, I bet you wish you sat Zeke last week. And you know what? You're going to wish you sat him again this week if you decide to roll with him again. Not only does he not have Dak Prescott, and this offense is going to have Cooper Rush, and who knows what this offense is going to be able to produce, if anything at all, but they're going up against Cincinnati, which you might think that's a great matchup, but it's really not. Cincinnati's run defense was really good last year, and they looked really good last week as well. This is a underrated running defense. And the other thing is, despite what Jerry Jones said, like, we just got to ride Zeke, they did not ride Zeke last week at all. He barely out-carried Tony Pollard, and Tony Pollard had more targets than Zeke. So he's not a workhorse running back anymore. He's not that good anymore. And now he's going to be an offense led by Cooper Rush that may not be able to do much at all going against a tough run defense. Please, stop thinking about Zeke from like 2017, 2018. That Zeke is gone. This is the new Zeke. He's no longer a must start. Sure, in great matchups, you'll probably be able to start him, but this isn't one of those. You need to bench him again.
Yeah, you know, that your whole theory of Zeke being dust, it's holding up so far. Definitely checks out. All right, now enough picking on the Cowboys. I feel like that's all we're doing, except let's go back to pick on the Jets one more time. And look, another guy, this is tough for me, but I'll admit, I love Breece Hall. I had a lot of him. I still do have a lot of him, in the draft process. I just don't think that this is his week. I don't think he's ready to be a contributor in fantasy just yet. Look, he was okay last week because he got those 6 receptions, but only 6 carries. And I guess Michael Carter is technically the lead back right now. This is just a recurring theme now. We know we talk about this all the time because it's true. The NFL is a copycat league. So one of the latest trends is just fading rookie running backs. You don't draft a running back in the first round anymore, right? Hall was the first one taken, and it was second round. We don't see any other running backs taken, basically. Kenneth Walker, and then you go third round, fourth round. They're drafted later and later, and now they're put into the lineup later and later. We don't see these guys. Even we thought Dameon Pierce, right? He was going to be the workhorse. He's the guy in Houston. No, Rex Burkhead is the guy there. It's the same thing. Breece Hall, despite being the first running back drafted, being far and away the most talented running back in this class, they're still pretending that Michael Carter is their RB1, and it's going to be like this for another few weeks. Mid-season, that's when you'll see these guys start to contribute. So look, for now, Hall is just not going to get the volume. Probably not going to be a good game script, even though Cleveland, well, their offense isn't dynamic, but still, they have a pretty good defense. I don't feel like Hall is going to rip off those big runs, get the touchdown upside. So I'm going to have to keep fading Hall just for the time being, just like all these other rookie running backs. All right, now you know which players are set to bust in week 2. What about those players that will smash and help you win? Check out our playlist with all the best fantasy advice to help you win this week and every week here at Fantasy Endgame.